And we're going to get Karl Rove's reaction to the crisis in Egypt in just a minute. But first, we want to bring in our great American panel to get reaction to that heated interview you just saw. He is was the senior spokesman for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, founding partner of Hilltop Public Solutions. Mo Olathi is back with us. He is an Emmy and Peabody award-winning comedian and is appearing next week at the Funny Bone in Dayton on February the 10th through the 13th. Paul Mecurio is here, and she worked in the White House under President George W. Bush for media affairs. Mercedes Vienna Schlapp is with us. This is the problem with this imam. He didn't want to answer the questions. Of course he believes in jihad. Of course he believes in the virgins. His comments, Sharia law, cutting off people's arms and hands. Yeah, he's right. Our prisons would be empty. But every woman, he says, must wear a burqa. This is what he wants and is predicting is going to take over in Cairo. That is frightening to me.
Absolutely. I think when you look at the case here, when he said women are free to wear burqas, it just caught me off guard. It's just incredibly sad. And when you look in the case of Egypt, for example, you look at these women that if they do end up going under this radical Islamic law, that they can't go and get an education. They're stuck at the house, covered up in their burqas. It's just
girls can't get an education.
That's
Women
right.
can't go out to work. You know, if I was a little quicker on the uptake, I should have said, well, how about if they want to wear a bikini?
Yeah, exactly. I lost a lot of respect for him as a crazy person because I like my crazy people to be crazy. Like Hitler was like, hey, I'm crazy, I'm Hitler. This guy's like, you have all this videotape and all of these transcripts that say he said that. And he goes, well, yeah, I'm kind of not. Those guys, I'm not really with the, okay, I'm with those guys today. I'm not with those guys. It's like, step up and just say I said it. I'd have more respect for you.
But what you picked up on something that's really key, and that is that they believe it. They want it to happen. They want the Islamic Caliphate, which is what the Muslim Brotherhood says.
But they don't want to go on television and look you in the eye and say, you know what, we are your enemy.
And they want to whitewash it.
Right, exactly. And that's the problem I have.
Well, I don't want to turn this too political, but this has been this is one of the big differences I see with Bush and Obama. Obama, for the longest time, wouldn't say war on terror. There is an enemy out there. You know, the last century we fought communism, totalitarianism, fascism, Nazism, Imperial Japan, and today it's terrorism, and the terrorists are radical jihadists like the one we just had.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, yeah, it's really interesting. Islam is really, truly one of the world's great religions, right? I mean, there are the overwhelming majority of Muslims around the world aren't like that guy. Right? I mean, it's people like him that have corrupted that, and you're right. That is who we're fighting in this war on terror. I think what's going on in Egypt, you know, this is where we got to find that right balance. You know, this is where we got to strike that balance because we can't allow those people to take over.
There's no organized opposition except the Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, that's exactly right. When I was talking to an Egyptian man this morning, and he talked about this. He was talking to his family. They're very well-to-do. They're very excited about democratic change in Egypt. However, they say there is no leader for this democratic movement. Yeah. And so they don't want the military in charge, but they don't want the extremists in charge. Yeah. But then where is the leader?
There's no organized opposition, which is the way Mubarak wanted it. So you got al-Baradei with the Muslim Brotherhood creating a coalition.
The only organized group.
It's the only organized group.
It's like so it's like having mini-me. You know, it's going to be like mini Mubarak coming in if Mubarak steps out. And you know, at the end of the day, you know, what's going on in Egypt and the way they're fighting is indicative of why this is happening. If you look at what the two sides are using to fight, one side is using Twitter, the other side is using camels. Camels! Is this the uprising of 1791? You can't. You ever try to get on a camel?
No, I never tried to get on a camel.
It hisses at you, yes. You can't mount it. It's like every sorority girl I ever tried to date.
Oh, you had to go. All right. More with our great American panel and the architect Karl Rove. We'll get his take on the situation in Egypt and much more. As always, thanks for being with us. And we continue now with our great American panel. All right, so a few years back, I had this exchange with this priest, and you know, I took the position. I'm Catholic. I'm a Christian, and I said, well, non-Catholics, I would rather they use birth control than have an abortion. And so this priest and I had this exchange. Watch this. Why don't you work on real important issues instead of superfluous issues? If I eat meat on Friday, or you want to call a public figure who is an avowed Catholic a hypocrite, why don't you work on the corruption in the church? Why don't you work on the sex scandal? Why don't you work a change in the attitude that had contributed to the atmosphere that allowed a level of corruption that, frankly, is absolutely morally beyond anything I've ever seen in my life for any church? Why don't you work on real important issues, sir?
I agree with you. And how do you know I'm not working on those?
What are you doing? I haven't read an article about that. Have you ever written an article about that instead of taking cheap shots at people that are publicly Catholic?
Yeah, go to my website, hli.org, and you'll see a lot of criticism of these issues.
Hey,
But
Father,
I'm criticizing you because you're not
And I'm
consistent,
criticizing
and
you.
You're professing to be a Catholic,
And are you
you're not.
perfect, Father? Are you perfect in every way? Have you not sinned? Well, apparently he sinned. I take full responsibility for my poor judgment, my weakness, my sinful conduct that resulted from it. The violations of chastity happened due to human weakness, but did not involve the sexual act. Bill Clinton might be proud of that, but sorry, Mo. Look, I don't want to. I don't want to make a situation worse. You know, apparently something happened pretty severe, and he's got taken away from his position. But what do you think of, you know, he wouldn't give me communion at the end of that. You know, he said he would deny me communion, and
that is between, you know, you and your priest when it comes to the issue of what your position is on birth control. And based on the church's teachings, as we know, and Pope John Paul II had mentioned it in the Humanae Vitae, which is that the practice of artificial contraception is against the church's
Right.
teachings. So,
but I was speaking about non-Catholics.
well,
I mean,
but as Catholics, we're here to basically, you know, the truths are
to express
universal.
our way. All right. But,
in that sense.
The larger issue I have as a Catholic is that this is more of the same from the Catholic Church and these people. There's this hypocrisy and double standard. You have a right to say what you said. They don't even want you to say that as a Catholic. So obviously, and now it's starting to feel like radical Islam on some level. In fact, frankly, now they're whitewashing this whole thing. They won't tell us, did he have sex? Did he not have sex? If he didn't have it, you know what? I want to high-five the guy. It's better that he had sex with a woman than with kids, okay?
Well,
you know what I mean?
but
It's
we
like I'm not
have to
condoning
also
it, but
think
like,
that
he was so self-right. He spent years raising money off this exchange with me and building his name recognition. And 3 years later, it's my 3-year anniversary since I had my.
Sean, you know, the messenger is flawed. I mean, let's look at the wonderful priests that we also have that are part of our parishes across the country that are there for our faith.
Well, that's why I've been
so,
quiet.
You know, I wish that the interview would have been with Pope John Paul II because he beautifully articulates this message of Catholicism and why, you know, this issue, as Pope Benedict said, is controversial, but it's important.
But in this world we live in, do you really think that you can convince non-Catholics, non-Christians that waiting till you get married before you have sex? There's a certain realistic quality to what I was saying. Not that I like it, not that but it's just real.
Well, you know, at the end, the issue is about the sanctity of life and being
I
open
believe
to
I'm very
children.
pro-life.
Well, and being open to children as well.
But I teach my kids
and we
to wait.
talked about artificial contraception versus
Mo
natural
hasn't gotten it.
family
Mo.
planning.
I mean, just watching that clip warms my heart because he brought the inner liberal out in you, Sean, that we all know is deep down in there.
That's like the Huffington Post offending me.
No, but look, I mean, you know, one of the first rules of debating, whether you're in politics or anything else, is if you're going to throw a bomb, if you're going to launch an attack, make sure that you're clean on it yourself.
That's a good point.
You know, and this guy clearly has his
He's a little too political
issues.
for my liking as a man of the cloth, frankly. I feel like he's got an agenda that's second to his agenda, his own agenda, is the Catholic Church and people who are Catholic.
It may
That's the problem I have
surprise.
with that.
I have no ill will towards him, and I wish him the best.